I did want to ask if I could just direct you for a second to two areas of, because, I like discussing the corporate media with you because we both don't mind throwing some haymakers where they're deserved on that one. The press's response to Chinese responsibility for this pandemic and the way the press has responded to the allegations of sexual assault against Joe Biden that are out there, given the way they responded to Kavanaugh and other things in the past, it feels like they have no more credibility to protect. So at this point, maybe just this is the way they're going to act and they don't care how much it looks ridiculous to us. What do you think?
Well, I think when you have a population like their readership, the true believers who have been trained since kindergarten that these people are the arbiters of truth, in many ways, the more ridiculous and more self-contradictory the story put forward, the better it is for your audience because they are then psychologically feeling strong for having this cognitive dissonance. This was very much a function of things like the Soviet Union and other countries where you have this maybe one party kind of media. At the same time, I've had this discussion with several people, like Molly Hemingway, off the top of my head, who's I know you're a big fan of, and I'm a big fan of as well. And a lot of conservatives had this belief that for a long time that the media is basically an arm of the DNC, the Democratic Party. And I think what we're seeing, I threw up a poll on my Twitter, and I was delighted at the response. I said, which would you rather have if you had to pick a choice of these two? And again, people don't like bad choices, but there's two bad choices from their perspective. 9 random Democratic senators for the Supreme Court, 9 random Democratic senators, or 9 random New York Times reporters. And obviously this is an unscientific poll, but 3-1 people chose the Democrats in the Senate because there's a realization that for conservatives, as bad as you might think, party hacks like Dianne Feinstein or some other randos might be, they do not compare at all to I call them jihadis without testosterone that work for the New York Times. For an example, there was that protest in Michigan. Governor Whitmer has the strongest, I believe, lockdown procedures of any state in the nation. For a long time, federalism, let's have every state be the laboratory and have different states experiment. I think that's a good approach in general, especially something like this. People protest and they're like, look, I can't buy seeds to plant gardens, or I can't visit my in-laws. This is crazy. And a reporter who works for the New York Times for their 1619 project, which is trying to rewrite American history to start with it being defined as the introduction of slavery, she had this tweet about how, I'm supposed to believe this is a coincidence that this is happening when deaths are spiking in the Black and brown communities. And I'm like, it's great that the mask is dropping, because you would never see any Democratic senator make a claim that demented and deranged. So I think kind of exposing, and you look at Governor Newsom of California, who's hardly Republican, Governor Cuomo of New York, hardly Republican, lifelong partisan from a hardcore Democratic family. They both are speaking highly of President Trump, or at least moderately. Prime Minister Conte of Italy, who's governing in coalition with the Social Democrats, went out of his way to praise President Trump. And then when you look at how the corporate press is talking, as if every death was not only his responsibility.
He ordered it.
Almost as
it was like he's ordering executions. Yes, he's
and he wants it.
Yeah. It's stunning. I mean, so, I do think that you raised the point about the corporate press and how the mask is dropped. People keep saying that, okay, the conservative media and there's now more opposition. I mean, that's a part of it, but really, it's just that now they freely share their thoughts. I mean, that report, even Jake Tapper recently retweeted. He just couldn't help himself. I mean, he's one of the worst frauds because he still upholds that. You mentioned people being raised to think that like the Cronkites of the world and these people are so trustworthy and nonpartisan. It's a giant lie, and Tapper's in that mold. But he retweeted someone saying that President Trump is insane. And then he turns around and he goes, well, I just thought that was newsworthy. Well, no, they show us who they are and then they pretend they haven't, which I think is funny.
Apparently, he also thinks it's newsworthy to have Richard Spencer, one of the prominent leaders of the alt-right, be on his show, because that's to, let the people know. But then if someone's talking to President Trump, they should be run out of town on a rail. It's interesting you bring up Jake Tapper, because The Daily Show, which have been for a long time, one of these head agitprop outlets designed to kind of train their population to think a certain way, they had a segment on like stupid responses to this virus. And I always say that the corporate press is factual but not truthful. So, for example, if I went to the store and bought a ton of groceries and you said, Michael went to the store to buy oranges. That is factual, but it's not truthful. There are other things I bought, and that's an innocent example. So in their clip reel, they only had Republicans who were downplaying this forthcoming threat as if to imply that only Republican and the Democrats were on the level. The idea that you're going to be partisan during this, I mean, we talk about how, like, you know, crime and diseases don't recognize color, but you really want to make this a Republican Democrat thing. Jake Tapper had on de Blasio, mayor of New York, and he asked him, don't you think you encouraging people early on to go on the subway and live your life had an issue with this? So the fact is that there were plenty of people on the left who didn't see this coming. I don't blame them at all. And they will still put forth these clip reels to give the implication that,
right,
you know,
but hold on, but this is
Republicans want
important.
everyone to die.
Do you realize why Tapper does that? This is the Tapper move, and he's not the only one, so I'm not trying to make this about, but they'll ask, you know, one real question once in a while of one Democrat, and then that wipes away all the propaganda reels, the stuff that you're talking about. They point to that, say, see, I had de Blasio.
Yep.
Of course, de Blasio was being a moron about this, so that you're supposed to get a prize for that? Hey, Team Buck, thank you so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, please click that little thumbs up button so then it will log as liked. And also, if you want to see more great content from The First, please click subscribe.